Examined very briefly the Greek verb. We have seen its significance and its importance in communicating the thought. Now we come to the nouns of the Greek language. The noun, like the Greek, is a very specific portion or a very specific component in the Greek language, in that it too has many peculiarities like the verbs do. Now basically, the nouns have three declensions or reflections, as we said earlier. By that I mean the ending of the noun changes, well, somewhat like the verbs do. We have one noun that is anthropos, and you hear the os at the end, anthropos. Another one, which is andras, has as at the end. This is the first declension. And then stoma, which is a at the end. All three are nouns, but they are in different declensions. Now the os, anthropos, as we said earlier, thanatos, which is death, oios, which is son, gamos, which is marriage, all these nouns are in the second declension. Now the second declension, as I said last time, holds or contains more than the other declensions do, as far as words. We looked at some words, we looked at some nouns, so let's go into parsing some of these nouns. What is included, or what do we need in order to parse or to take apart a Greek noun? Four things are needed if we're going to understand it. First of all, we've got to have declension. Second, we have to have a case. And third, we've got to have a gender and number. Four things are necessary if we're going to parse a noun. Now, we're going to look at some of those in just a moment. Now, the noun will agree with the verb in its person and in its number. These always must agree. The noun, the verb, and the adjective will always agree in number and in person. Now, let's take just a moment and look at this thing here. This declension we've already seen. There are three declensions. And they cannot be confused, by the way. Every noun remains in its proper declension. Let's take a look now at the case, if you will. Now, in ancient Greek, unlike modern Greek, there were 8 cases that were used in the ancient Greek. And we'd like to take just a moment and review what each case means and how basically it was used. Now, I have here Mr. Summers' book on Introduction to Greek, or the Essentials to New Testament Greek. It's a very useful book, and you might find a copy of it in your bookstore. It's, let me tell you again, it's the Essentials of New Testament Greek by Summers. It's very elemental and very simple to follow. Now, pertaining to the nouns and the cases, notice what he says. A case has to do with the function of the noun as it relates to the verb or to other parts of the sentence. In Greek nouns, there are 4, 5 in some instances, that is, where the vocative has a form separate from the nominative inflected forms. Now, that may not mean much to you right now, but we'll explain it in a moment. Now, there are, however, 8 distinctive cases, functional ideas covered by these various forms. Now, I'm going to share these forms with you and give you a better idea of what we're talking about, and then I want to define each of the 8 cases of the noun. Now, we're going to look at the form. Now, as I told you a moment ago, let's use the word anthropos again. It's a very simple word. Anthropos. We see here, anthropos is in the nominative case. Now, there are 4 forms of this, if you will. It has the os. You might remember I think we used the noun with the ending of ou, ou. We have the os. We have the ou. We have omega, and we have us, and we have e. Okay? These are the 5 basic forms. Now, out of these 5 forms, we also have 8 distinctive cases that come out of these forms. And what I mean by forms are the endings of the noun. Okay? Here are the 5 endings of the nouns, but there are 8 cases. That simply means that there are some cases that have the same form or the endings as one of the others do. Now this one here is a nominative case. This is a nominative case. Nominative case shows designation. Nominative case is going to show a designation. Now in this form here, in this U form, we have 2 distinctions here. We have first the genitive, and we have the ablative. Now the genitive is descriptive. It is descriptive or even possessive. For instance, we can say the coat of the man, the color of the hair. You see, it's very descriptive. So this form of the noun is in a genitive case or descriptive case, if you will. Now the ablative is the case of separation. For instance, we would say the servant left from the house. The boy left from the house to play ball. So in this ablative case, it shows an act of separation. Now all of this is seen in a noun. It's wonderful the way it works. You're saying already, no, you don't understand. This is too complicated. And I'm saying to you again, this is a science. It's a science that is exact. It is like a mathematical equation. You simply put the right components in the right place, and you come up always with the right answer. It only takes some discipline and determination that you're going to learn. Now we've come to the 3rd form, if you will, of the noun. Now, all of these are in the singular, okay? Now, there is also a plural that coordinates with each of the singular endings, but we won't look at those for right now. We see in this with the omega, and this little thing here below the omega, let's put it a little closer, okay? This little thing here is called a yotoscript. You can study about that some other time, but you'll often see these things at the end of a word where there is an omega. And as I said, you can learn about that some other time. This particular thing has 3 distinctions to it. One form with 3 distinctions. It is a dative. It is a dative form, which means it shows interest. The 3rd distinction of it is locative. It shows, of course, location. The 3rd distinction of it is instrumental. And it shows that something has means, if you will. The means of accomplishing or doing something. Okay? Now, as I said, we're simply going to give you the outline of these things. We don't have time to go into a lot of detail as far as showing examples of everything, but at least to make you aware of how these nouns function. And then with this one here, I should have put this in the singular, on, if you will, and I put this also in the plural. It should be we have here, this is the accusative case here. This is the accusative case, and this is the case of limitation. Okay? And then lastly, we have the vocative case. Vocative case, and it is the one of address. For instance, if I'm going to call Peter, in Greek, the word Peter sounds like Petros. Petros. It looks like this. Petros. That's the name. Now, if I'm going to call to Peter in Greek, I would not say Petros, because Petros here, if you'll notice the ending, and we're going to get complicated just for a moment, the ending is os. Therefore, it is nominative. He is not the subject of a verb here. He is simply being addressed. So, I do not say Petros, but I would say Petre. If I'm yelling to Petros, I would say Petre. So we see the difference and the various distinctions. We have 5 forms, os, u, o, on, e. These are the singular forms. The plural has a coordinating ending as well. But anyway, 5 forms, 8 distinctions. We have the nominative case, genitive and ablative case, dative, locative, instrumental case, and we have the accusative case and the vocative case. In modern Greek, it's a bit more easy, although we're not studying modern Greek here. We have only 4 of the cases in modern Greek. We have dispensed with 4 of them. Makes it somewhat easier to study. Let's look now at the gender of the nouns. We've looked at the case. Let's look at the gender. Very interesting. With one word, we know if it's male, female, or neuter. For instance, we have anthropos. This ending is going to tell us exactly if it's masculine, feminine, or neuter. This ending, os, is always a masculine ending. Now remember, we also had an os ending. One of the other declensions, the first declension is os. This too is masculine. Masculine ending. Now, if we have a word like, well, we had a word a moment ago, stoma. Stoma is a neuter word. We know that it is neuter because of the ending here. As we know, this is masculine because of the os. This is masculine because of the os. Andros. Andros, the ending is os. Now, those are examples of the masculine, and here, as well as the neuter. Let's look just for a moment at the feminine. The feminine, e, agape. The ending is ita. By this ending, we know that it is a feminine noun. Now, we may get ahead of ourselves just a little bit here, but you'll notice I have added a letter. This is an ita. This is an article. It is pronounced ita. Every noun has an article. There is an article for every noun. And with this article, we can never mistake the gender of the noun. Now, as you would progress further into the Greek studies, you would then come across some words, some nouns, that would take on the same ending, and it may be masculine and feminine. These are rare, however they are. The only way that you can tell or distinguish the gender will not be with the ending in those cases, but it's going to be always with the article. The article can never be mistaken. And if we have time, we'll look at these articles and just see how they differ. Now, there is an article for each case. Every case of the noun has its particular article that distinguishes that case. For instance, here in this, the article is going to be o. We say, and here in this one, don't forget we have one form and two distinctions. The article looks like this. Here, the article looks like this. 3 times. We have 2 distinctions here, we have 3 distinctions here, and here the article looks like this. And here in the vocative case, there is no article. Now, these are the masculine cases, if you will. Now, don't forget, there's also a distinction from the masculine to the feminine and then to the neuter. Each one has its own set of articles and noun endings. Again, you're saying, how can anyone learn such a language? Again, it's very simple, because it's simply a matter of mapping these things, placing them into your mind or your memory. You know that this article is always going to be the same in this declension with this ending, because it's the nominative case. It's always going to be the same. It's never going to change. It's always going to be exact. Here, in this genitive and this ablative case, the article always looks that way. So therefore, the end of the word anthropos then becomes to anthropou. It's always going to be the same. So you simply memorize the articles, the list of articles, the list of endings, put the article with the ending, put the word in the middle, and suddenly, bingo, you have learned, or you have begun learning, the Greek language. It's only difficult if you want to make it that way. And I know in our Western minds, we have already convinced ourselves for the most part that we can't do something before we try. This you're going to be able to do. So we're looking at the gender now. The gender is going to determine whether it's masculine, feminine, or neuter. Now in English, it's difficult to tell this sometimes, because you don't always know if a word is masculine, feminine, or neuter. For instance, the word church. Is the word masculine, feminine, or neuter? If you're going to use a descriptive pronoun for the church, what do you say? It is, she is, or he is? Sometimes it's hard to tell. In the Greek, there's never a problem, because the word church begins with the article eta, which is always feminine. So we see ecclesia is feminine. Another word, for instance, tree. Is a tree a masculine thing, or is it a neuter thing? Or maybe a feminine thing? When you describe it, do you say, he is standing there, it is standing there, she is standing there? It has nuts, he has leaves, or she has bark? Whatever. In the Greek, there's no problem. We have xandro. The article is to, always neuter. So we know, regardless of whatever happens to this end here, the article is always going to tell us the gender. And let's move along now to our next part. Now we have covered declension. There are 3 declensions. We have looked at the cases. There are 5 forms, and there are 8 distinctions in the cases. We have looked at the gender. There is masculine, feminine, and neuter. Now let's move along to the number of the noun. Just as the verb has a person, first, second, third, singular and plural, the noun has a number. For instance, there are apples and there is apple. There are clouds and there is cloud. So we see singular and plural. Now let's look at the difference between the singular and the plural. Let's take the word logos. Let me move this from our board. We'll take the word logos. The word logos is word. Very interesting thing about logos, and if we have time in this introduction, I'll share some thoughts with you on this word, logos. The word logos, it is o logos, because we know that it is now masculine because of the article as well as the ending. It has the singular nominative case article with a singular nominative case ending on the word logos. So we know that this is a noun of designation. It's going to be the subject of the action. Okay? So let's look at it. Let's look at the singular and the plural, and let's see the number in these things. We see here, o logos. The plural is going to be e logi. E logi. O logos, e logi. Now this is the nominative case. We're going to go down now to the genitive case and to the ablative case. Now I'm only going to put the one form down to save myself from writing all these things. And it looks this way. Tu logo. Tu logo. Now let's go to the plural form of this same thing. It looks this way. Ton logon. Ton logon. Let's go to the third form, if you will. This third form is going to take in the dative case, the locative case, and the instrumental case. And it looks like this. It's going to be to. To. And there's that little iota script. And the word looks like logo. Logo with the iota script. We come to the plural of this thing, and it looks this way. Tis. Tis logis. And then we come down to the fourth, and it's going to be the accusative case. The article is ton, taf, omicron, ni, and the word becomes logon. In the plural, it is tous. Logos. Now remember, I've been telling you that this is a very systematic language. It's a very scientific and structured language. Do you notice anything that simplifies this seemingly maze of words? Notice. We have in the nominative case, omicron. That's our article. O, which means the. The word. O logos. Now notice, if you will, we have o logos, and this article corresponds much with the end. O logos. Now after we leave the nominative case to the others, it corresponds directly. We see here the genitive and the ablative case, tu. Tu. We look at our word logo, and what do we see? We see that the article here, the u, appears at the end to logo. So we see a simplification of this thing. It's not as difficult as we first thought. We see here in this form, which is to, taf, omega, and we look at the end of the word logo, and it is to logo. To logo. We come to the accusative case, ton, taf, omicron, ni, and we see here that it corresponds again with the end. Ton, logon. Ton, logon. So we see it is simplified for us somewhat. Now this is the singular. This here is the plural of the same word. We can say the word is here. The word is here. The word is the subject of the verb is, making it the nominative case. We can come here and say the words are here. plural. We have the article, E, omicron, iota. Now notice again, it's corresponding with the end, logi. So here is a key to understanding. Memorize the articles, because the articles then help you to pronounce the rest of your noun. I can say, o logos είναι εδώ. The word is here. Or I can say, οι λόγοι είναι εκεί. The words are there. But we see the article in this declension is agreeing with the noun end. Okay? Same thing in all of these plural forms. Ton, logon. Tis, ta, omicron, iota, sigma, with logis. Tis logis. Tus, logos. You can hear the euphorism in this thing as well. We say, tus logos. This is the plural form and the accusative case. It would sound like this. The man read the words, or the man reads the words, let's say. Here we go. The man reads the words. Okay, we know the verb is reads. Who reads? The man reads. What did he read? The words. Here is the article, the, and here is the noun or the subject, or the indirect subject, I should say, is the words. We would say, o anthropos diabasi. Now listen to it. Tus logos. So we see how these articles agree with, and this declension of the noun with the end of the word, making it somewhat simpler to memorize and to better understand the grammar of the Greek. We'll continue on with the neuter noun in our next session. Welcome back to this segment of New Testament Greek Introduction.